Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Canopy Cafe on Thursday, May 21st this year. I feel like every day, I can't believe it's this late in May. So I hope everybody's doing well this morning. I want to thank you for joining us on the Canopy Cafe virtually. And if you've tuned into these before, you know that we at Canopy love having conversations with good business leaders, community leaders, entrepreneurs, professors, anybody that is of the good business movement that has something to say and has an interesting take on socially and environmentally responsible business and how Canopy can create that in Kentucky and how we can be a model beyond. And this morning is a way for us to have the conversations that we would typically have in our office that we so miss having in person. And we're thankful that we're able to do this virtually. And today we have a wonderful guest. His name is Geoff Marietta. Geoff is an esteemed board member of Canopy, and we're very lucky to have him on our board. He is a man of many talents. He is overseeing Kentucky Moonbow, which is an organization that is showing the world Appalachian magic through unique food and retail experiences in a way that nurtures the community and region in the eastern part of Kentucky and Appalachia. Also Mountain Tech Media, a media company that advances Appalachia's economy through pioneering design, visuals, and branding. He is running an accelerator program, a nonprofit accelerator program that is aimed to catalyze business growth in the 606 area code by connecting entrepreneurs with the resources they need to succeed today and tomorrow. And this is called Invest 606. He's an entrepreneur in residence at the University of the Cumberlands and his new venture, Trillium Ventures. And so we're very glad to have Geoff with us this morning. So let's go ahead and bring him on. Hi, good morning, Geoff.
Morning, Ben. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. And I would be remiss. Right before we got started, I was asking Geoff how he wanted to be introduced, and so Lee said that he has a most excellent taste in headphones. So there you go. Those are pretty rad.
Hey, when you're on Zoom 80% of your day, you have to have something that fits your head right.
Absolutely. I need to up my headphone game over here for sure. So how are you doing, Geoff? How's life?
Life's pretty good right now. I mean, we're all just kind of trying to, make it every day with the context and the situation that we have. Just to give a little bit of background, I live in Williamsburg, and most of my work takes place in Southeast Kentucky. So I'm out and about usually pre-COVID in Harlan, Hazard, Pikeville, Whitesburg, up to Moorhead, and then across towards the central part of state in Somerset, McCreary County. So the 606 area code is where I do a lot of my work. And as you mentioned, I'm an entrepreneur. I own several businesses, and I also teach a couple classes at the University of the Cumberlands. And then I also launched this accelerator and pitch contest exclusively for small growing businesses in Eastern Kentucky, and that's called Invest 606. And we just launched that in August of 2019 and had our first cohort of 12 businesses. And we're going to have an awesome pitch competition in April. And of course, that all got moved to video, and so we're still pushing along, but we kind of pivoted to doing whatever we could to get resources to small businesses in Eastern Kentucky. So I'm happy to take any questions in any direction about my work, about what it's like running a small business in Eastern Kentucky, the challenges, the opportunities, or how good business is happening in Eastern Kentucky and really fulfilling the mission of Canopy.
Absolutely. And thanks for that, Geoff. And so anybody tuning in, feel free to drop a comment or a question into the chat box and we'll get to it. We have a little feed here that's letting us know any live comments or questions that are coming in. So we'll keep an eye on that. So, Geoff, our mission at Canopy is to grow businesses to positively impact people, our planet, and our future. And as somebody who owns several businesses, is deeply involved in the entrepreneurial world and the educational space in Eastern Kentucky, how do you apply these good business principles with the work that you do?
Well, I think that any business that's operating in Eastern Kentucky by default has to have a social awareness and social mind towards doing good business. You cannot start and operate a business in Eastern Kentucky without facing some of the biggest and deepest societal challenges in America. You're operating in places that, consistently make the sort of top 10 poorest counties in the United States. You have, the opioid crisis. You have, triple the unemployment. You've got, massive percent of people who aren't working or are living in poverty. And so, the question is, how do you start a business in a context like that that's actually going to be one sustainable, but also make a positive impact on the community? So, what I've always said is that it's impossible to start a business and not be socially minded in Eastern Kentucky because there's just no wiggle room around it. You have to think about your impact on the environment. You have to think about how you're employing people and giving them a living wage. You have to employ people who've struggled with addiction or who are in recovery. The ripple effect of a job or a loss of a job on families is exponential in small communities. So, really, it's more kind of the water in which we swim rather than a conscious choice in many ways.
That's a great answer and well said, Geoff. And I am personally a huge fan of Eastern Kentucky and the environmental landscape that exists out there. And having learned from you about the community mindset that is so strong in the eastern part of our state in Kentucky is wonderful to see. And, I think about what the future holds. And you said it so eloquently that this just embedded in how people think, that if you're starting a business or if you're, in Eastern Kentucky from there, it's part of your DNA to be community minded. And so I'm curious, with the Invest 606 Accelerator program, how do you see this showing up in the entrepreneurial sector? This focus on starting a business that also has this sincere embedding of social and environmental consciousness.
Sure. So when you look at the profile of the businesses that are finalists in Invest 606, they are all operating, growing businesses that have proven track records, that have customers that are growing. And so what do growing businesses have in Eastern Kentucky? Well, obviously, you'd have to be living in a cave if you didn't know that there's been the greatest decline in coal in pretty much the history, and it's continuing to decline over the last 8 to 10 years. And so, you have this massive, driver of the economy that just fell off a cliff. And so there's not going to be any ability to build any businesses that are going to be growing in that area. And so then what do you look? You look at the natural assets and the strengths of the region, which are amazing. You have incredible natural landscape, world renowned biodiversity, just beautiful mountains. You have a culture that is unique in the world, with amazing art, music, and kinship among the community members. And then you have ingenuity among the folks who've, figured out a way to live for, the last 200 years in a place that's kind of hard to live in. And so the businesses that are going to be built around that are the ones that are going to be successful. So we have, we have some farmers, we have local meat processors. We also have some very unique kind of boutique upcycling retail We've got a couple of really great coffee shops that also have unique business models. I should say coffee and bakery that have unique business models. One primarily employs people with disabilities. Another hires almost predominantly people who are in recovery and also serves as a community gathering spot. We have a couple of technology companies, but you can just see across the finalists, they're all operating businesses that hit on the strengths of the region. Some interesting facts: 2/3 of them are women-owned. I think you see in the diversification of the economy in Eastern Kentucky, you see a lot of women entrepreneurs stepping up and starting businesses that are growing and employing people. We also, it's 8 different sectors. We have 9 different counties represented, over $1 million in revenue, and I think employing 60 to 70 people. And I should say this is, of course, all before COVID hit.
Right. Again, well said. It's wonderful to hear of the intentionality and the specific nature with which businesses can lean on their core competencies and address a complex and significant social or environmental challenge. And so supportive employment is a wonderful example of how you can provide these opportunities for employment and also provide support in various ways that are so critical as people are in recovery, as an example. And so it's wonderful to hear. And for you, as a Harvard MBA grad and as somebody who is teaching entrepreneurship at the University of the Cumberlands, tell us what you are hearing from students in terms of companies that they are interested in buying from, starting, or working for. The student perspective is really interesting in this movement.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 2 things that I want to comment on that. It's just incredibly hard to start a business. Google how to start a business, and you will not find any information how to start a business. And as you mentioned, I was fortunate enough to get my MBA from Harvard Business School. I didn't learn how to start a business at Harvard Business School. I learned how to start a business by starting my own business. And any amount of book learning or teaching or reading is not going to give you the skill set. And so the first thing that I try to do in my class is break down what do you actually need to do to start a business. And the first thing you need to do is figure out whether what you want to sell people will buy. And will the business model actually support a sustainable business model? Whether that's whether you're starting a nonprofit or a for-profit. On a nonprofit side, will you be able to will people find it compelling enough to give money, and how much, and will it support what you're trying to do? So that's the very first step. And anybody who's started a business knows that very deeply, that you should not create something before you know deeply whether or not it's going to sell. And so along with that is the new reality of and really it's demographic driven. You have the so-called millennial generation, and I don't want to stereotype too much, but you have this large demographic. They're now the largest demographic. These are people born roughly between 1980, 1995, maybe 98.
Millennial here. Yeah.
I feel lucky. I just missed it, and so I got to grow up without the internet, but I was still young enough to adapt. I feel like I'm very fortunate to grow up in that generation. But they, you could read all the analyses you want about this generation, about who they are, what they are, but you can just look at what they've lived through, as young people. And I think that generally they see that capitalism needs some fixing. And I think Jamie Dimon, came out just 2 days ago He's the CEO of JP Morgan, very respected banker, although I know there's probably some people who don't respect any bankers, but, very smart, person. And he said, our economy needs to be more inclusive. And
Right.
and even more so now. We had widening inequality before COVID hit, and now look what's happening. COVID came and it just exacerbated that already steepening or widening inequality. You look, it's just absolutely insane what you see with the markets and with the large companies and with these essentially monopolies and duopolies, just tearing apart the social fabric of our economy. And I think that that smart people and a growing generation is starting to see that and say, you know what, we need to do business better. We need to make some changes in
Right.
how business is done. Otherwise, and I'm going to pick on Amazon and Walmart a little bit, and some of the big box stores because they're easy to pick on. But once the biggest fear that I have right now, and that a lot of small business owners in Eastern Kentucky have, is not right now. Be careful, wear a mask, wash your hands, social distance. Do what you need to do. It's 3-4 months from now when the economy is back on its teetering whatever legs, and what jobs will be left and who will be hiring. And if right now is any indication of the strength of businesses and who will be hiring, it will be Amazon, it will be Walmart, it will be Lowe's, it will be the dollar stores, and that's what we're going to be left with. And so we have to make a conscious decision right now to do business and be consumers of the businesses we want to see in our community. And obviously, where I live, Walmart, we made a this forced us, my family, to say we don't want to shop at Walmart anymore. And it makes your life harder, but it also makes your life better. I mean, Walmart's just so damn convenient. Same thing with Amazon. But we don't want the kind of world that's dominated by Walmart and Amazon. We want the kind of world that has the local independent coffee shop. We want the kind of world that has, and we've got City Perk, who's a finalist in Invest 606. And my wife and I own a coffee shop in Harlan called Moonbow Tipple. We want to buy from a local butcher. Moonlight Meat is another Invest 606 finalist. She knows where the meat's coming from, and she can tell you what that cow ate from the day it was born to the day it was, slaughtered. And those are the kinds of businesses that we want to buy from. And I think I'm hoping that, if anything, that COVID has emphasized that we need more than ever local supply chain, local places to buy from. And I'm just hoping that the small businesses can get out of this without being completely crushed.
Me too. I also hope for that. I know it's very tough times for many right now, and especially in the small business sector. And it's something constantly top of mind for us at Canopy, across the country, and especially in Kentucky, the small business sector is the largest driver of economic growth. And, Canopy has a distinct focus on providing some of these practices that, really add on top of a good business model, right? You have to have a good product or service, but you also have to have this intentional, elevated commitment to the social and environmental consciousness with how you operate. And that's how you attract customers of the millennial generation and the generations following us. And it's becoming less of an interest and more of a demand, that customers are demanding this. And so curious, as somebody deeply involved in the small business sector and with these unique insights from entrepreneurs and students and what you've seen building your businesses. So what is it about Canopy's mission to provide accessibility to the good business movement that really speaks to you?
Well, one, and I said this to Scott, when we were talking about me joining the board, is again, it's a necessity. It's not a choice.
Mhm.
If businesses are going to survive in the 21st century, as you said, they're going to have to adapt to doing good business practices, and operating in a sustainable way, and making sure their employees are valued. So then, so then what? you know, and that world is uh, a world that is so far away from Eastern Kentucky.
Mhm.
The so-called, if I said triple bottom line or anything like that, it's not language that's
Right.
used. And so and in many ways, as I said, businesses are already doing this just naturally and organically. But
Mhm.
what if you could give them an accessible way to up their game, resources, knowledge, better yet, a network of other businesses that they can learn from? One of the first things uh, I did, we lived in Cambridge for 12 years before moving down to Harlan, and I'd started a software company in Cambridge. And just when you're on the coasts, and not to pick on Louisville, but if you're in Louisville, you have access to so much more resources, pitch contests, gatherings.
Mhm.
There's a palpable network that you can see and connect into. And when I got down to Eastern Kentucky, I looked around and people were just doing amazing things, but they were, because of geographic isolation, because of um, just kind of the way that a lot of the technical support programs had been set up and their limitations with federal funding, hadn't been able to create any kind of organic entrepreneur driven community. And so one of the first things that I was able to do just by chance was connect with Mike Mays, with Heine
Mhm.
Brothers Coffee, who he's been just amazing. I consider him a mentor, and just he kind of took me under his wing, and we connected, and we got 8 to 10 entrepreneurs from Eastern Kentucky, and we brought them up to Louisville, and did a business tour and stayed overnight and met other entrepreneurs. And that was kind of the seed that then became Invest 606. But we did that for 3 years. And that, just going and visiting Heine Brothers, going and talking to people like Gil Holland, and other business owners who, I remember Gil, first time I met him, he said, we have to think about ROC. And he said, it's not, yes, ROI, which of course, return
Mhm.
on investment. And I'm sitting there thinking, what's ROC? And do you know what have you ever heard him talk about this, Ben? Or,
I have, yep.
okay. So it's return on community.
Mhm.
And, you just sit there and you thought, God, yeah, return on community. And then when you start
Yeah.
putting the pieces together, you start to see that if you integrate ROI and ROC, it not only makes your community better, but it actually it reverberates back on your investment.
Mhm.
Because your community's better. The critics would say, well, gentrification. Well, I would challenge anyone to come down to Harlan, downtown, and gentrify it. You're not going to. You would end up in so many barriers. You have to work with the community, if you're going to take very economic challenging circumstances and build something that's sustainable. So it's I wouldn't say it's impossible to gentrify a community, but you need like $100 million and you just have to roll over everybody, and it would be ugly. But that would not happen, because it would, first of all, it'd be a terrible investment to do it that way. But, that network that Canopy brings, to go back to your original question, I'm rambling here, but that network is such an important component to what Canopy is bringing, because that's who people are going to learn from. People in Eastern Kentucky, and people in Louisville, and people in Western Kentucky, and Bowling Green, and Northern Kentucky, and Central Kentucky coming together and saying, hey, imagine getting 5 coffee shop owners together from 5 different regions of the state talking about how they do business in a sustainable way. Now, I would love to sit there and listen to, where do you get your beans from? Do you have community events? How kind of events? What kind of, who do you employ? How do you, what sort of special packages do you provide? How do you combat this? How do you combat that? And if you got people, like-minded or similar sector people together, who are all talking about how they build businesses in sustainable ways, that the power of that's what I see, the cohort effect of Invest 606. We got 12 finalists right now. What's it going to be like 3-4 years from now, when we have 50 alumni and 15 new finalists, and we bring in those alumni that first kickoff day to those 15 finalists, and those 15 finalists see amazing entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs in the region that they're building a growing business in. And that to me is what really gets me excited.
Absolutely. It gets us excited too. As we bring companies into our fold, as we build this network each and every day, every hour, every minute, honestly. And that's a good example of how we got connected. I mean, through Gil and Mike and, just those 3 with Canopy, all Portland neighborhood residents, in Louisville, Kentucky. And it's that network and connectivity that's so important in this moving forward, sharing ideas and best practices. We have a comment, not a question, from our very own Amanda Bates, Senior Director of Operations at Canopy. ROC is the best quote of the year. So congrats, Geoff. You're going to be nominated for Best Quote Giver of the Year in Canopy's world.
Well, we have to attribute that to Gil. So, but we don't. Gil doesn't need any more accolades. I'll take it.
Well, we'll get him on the cafe soon and have him talk about that. Maybe we'll get both of y'all on here soon.
I'm sorry, I can't. I'm gonna stop. I was about to say something that I can't reveal, but yeah. Anyway,
okay.
Carry on.
Maybe in due time.
Yes, that sounds good.
Good. Well, Geoff, we're about at time this morning, and I want to thank you for joining the Canopy Cafe. I want to thank you for your board service on Canopy and for everything that you're doing in Appalachia and Eastern Kentucky. It's truly amazing work. We're very lucky to have you, and I'd like to offer a moment for final words from you before we part ways.
I mean, I think that right now we're at a very monumental moment in U.S. history, and it's very divisive, and a lot of that division comes from the urban-rural divide, and I just the worlds are different, but we have much more in common, and we agree on much more than we disagree on. And that the only way we're going to find out what we agree on and how we can work together is by having constructive conflict, and not just shutting people out or just defriending people or closing people off, or please keep those people. If you're a Trump hater, keep the pro-Trump people in your Facebook feed if you know them, if you have a personal relationship with them, because what they're putting out there is a lived experience. And if you love Trump and you have someone who doesn't, keep them, and them and you have a personal relationship with them, don't just shut them off. Right. They're lived experiences. These people are not generally non-rational. They are sharing their experience because that's their personal experience, and that is valid. And we need to build a bigger tent and all come together, continue to come together around this. So let's all just be friends and work together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it's well said, Geoff. I love that idea. Constructive conflict. I think you're spot on. We need that now more than ever. So, Geoff, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We will see you hopefully this evening. We have a little Canopy board and staff trivia game happening. So we hope to see you virtually again this afternoon.
I'll try to make it.
Good deal. All right. Well, thanks, Geoff. You take care.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right. All right, everybody. That was Geoff Marietta, a man of many talents, doing amazing work in the eastern part of Kentucky and a board member of Canopy. We're so proud to have him involved in our work, and for the obvious reasons that you see. So thank you all for joining us for this morning's Canopy Cafe. And I always want to end this with calls to action that you can take. The first of which, we have the Charter for Good Business. And this is a simple way to say that you believe in the work of Canopy, that you believe socially and environmentally responsible business is the way of the future. And it will lead to successful business practices. It will lead to more solutions for some complex problems that we continuously see, especially in Kentucky. And so if you believe in what we're doing, please sign the Charter for Good Business. Just simply putting your name to it would mean a great deal to us. And you can do it by visiting canopyky.org. And also, we are a startup nonprofit organization. So if you are so inclined, we would greatly appreciate contributions to our cause and allowing us to continue the amazing work that is happening here in Kentucky. And you can contribute to Canopy by visiting canopyky.org/donate or texting to give at the number you see below. So thank you all so much for joining us this morning at the Canopy Cafe. Tomorrow, we will have our last Canopy Cafe of the week, and we will feature Matthew Stone of Bluestone Productions, a wonderful friend to Canopy, a very interesting company in event production, and just an all-around good dude. So we will welcome Matthew tomorrow, and I hope you'll join us tomorrow at 10. Take care, everybody.